So yeah, plants do reproduce. Can you think of some other living thing that doesn't reproduce? Are rocks living things? Okay, just checking. Can you think of a living thing that doesn't reproduce? I can't. That's actually sort of a fundamental definition of living things. I'm going to move that. So I think we could safely put that over here. Okay, so we've got reproduces, we've got has cells, we've got that, moves. What else? Anything else that needs clarification or that you want to challenge? Okay, you want clarification on that? Me too. Grows from natural things. I don't understand the intention. Grows from natural things. What does that mean? Okay, so it takes in stuff from its environment and grows. Could that be split into two things? Well, I think part of that, like the natural things part, could be in consumes nutrients. Is grows another part? Okay. Okay, so we've got that. Anything else that you want to challenge or get clarification on? Anything? Okay. Can I challenge one? Okay. No? Okay, Isaac. Moves. So I want clarification here. Are we saying moves on its own or just moves at all? Because I'm fairly certain that this roll of tape is not alive. But it's moving. Does that make it alive? Is that plant moving on its own? Is motion a prerequisite for life? Can there be a living thing that doesn't move?
Yes.
Okay. And yes, ma'am.
I think it means like, you're reproducing cells.
Okay.
You're still moving in some type of way. Like,
Okay.
they're moving.
Okay, so this plant, as it's reproducing, so you're talking at a microscopic level. Ooh, okay. Now, I don't know if that was the intention of the original statement. Oh, that was you. Oh, because you were the original stater. Okay, okay. Well, okay. Now, is it always motion that's perceptible? Let me ask you that. Can we see it and say, look, it's moving, it's a living thing? Okay. So I think your point is good, that you can have cells moving at a microscopic level that we can't see, we're not aware of. But I think we have to be careful when we use a word like move. So the plant moved. The wind was moving the trees yesterday like crazy. Is that my proof that they're alive? No. So I think what you're saying is correct, but I think we should be careful with language because we're typically talking about what we can observe. We're talking about observational evidence that it's alive. So, okay. So you guys are both saying, like, if there's growth, there's motion at a microscopic level. But here we are talking about things we can actually see. So would we say movement that we can see is a prerequisite for life? Yeah, it's really not. Because we can have something, there's no motion that we can observe. And that's the key piece. There is motion, but we can't observe it. So, well, over a long time, you're right. And my dad grew up on a farm in northern Columbiana County, Fairfield Township. And he used to talk about being a little kid, and it was an old farmhouse built in 1891, all the windows open, hot summer nights. and surrounded on three sides by corn. And he said on a hot enough July night, if there was enough moisture, you could hear the corn growing. Because if it was really, really hot, the corn will grow. I mean, the corn will grow real fast. If it's real hot and real wet, that's great conditions for grass growth. And he said on a really hot, wet July night, you would actually hear crackling as the corn was growing. You would hear the leaves rustling. And he said as a little kid, it used to scare the pants off him. But, you know, because you're surrounded, and there's this noise coming from the fields. This was even before children of the corn. But, yeah, I know. Don't even get me started. So, okay. You're right over a long perceptible period of time. But in terms of motion that we can watch on a short scale, I would say that's one to be careful with. So I'm gonna X that. Has cells, consumes nutrients, reproduces, grows. Anything else? Do you think energy goes with nutrients, or is that different? I don't know what the intention of the original stater was. Is that the same thing or different? Let me ask you this. You had physical science last year. Does this roll of tape have energy? I keep picking on this poor roll of tape. What kind of energy? Kinetic? Gravitational potential. Woo! Now it has kinetic. Does that mean it's alive? No. So, if we're talking about things like potential energy or gravitational energy, elastic energy, would having energy mean that it was alive? No. If we're talking about energy from nutrients, consuming things, would energy mean it's alive? I think so. Okay. Other ones that you want to challenge, clarify, etc. No? Okay, so what I want you to do is at your tables, I want you to do number 4. So your answers for 2 and 3 should vary because those were your own. Well, 3 is going to be pretty similar because it was our class brainstorm. 4, you should talk about and agree. It's still going to be your own words, but you're going to agree, so your answers are going to line up pretty well. And I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do that. I will set a timer. Things. Who has on that definition, that all-encompassing, best definition possible for number 4? Who has cells? Okay. Well, turns out all living things that we know of are organized based on a cellular structure. Now, some of them only have one cell, like the bacteria we've been talking about. Some of them have multiple cells, but they all have things in common. There we go. And the first thing they have in common is that they do have cells. All living things that we know of, all living things that we're aware of on this planet, we've never encountered a living thing that isn't composed of one or more cells. Who has on there, takes in nutrients? Okay. Another way to express that might be uses energy. What are nutrients but energy? What are calories? It's a measure of how much energy is in the food. We live in this weird time and place in human history. This has never before happened again. Odds are it'll never happen after this moment in time is over, where there are actually more calories than a lot of people can consume in the industrialized world. That's never happened. For most of human history, people have worried about not getting enough calories to stay alive, to reproduce, to keep their children alive. But all calories are energy. High-calorie food is high-energy food. If you're climbing mountains in sub-zero weather, you want as many calories as you can possibly get because your body is burning right through them. If you're sitting at home playing video games, you don't need that many. So it all depends on what you're doing. If you are, it's true, if you are hunting and gathering for your existence and walking 20-some miles a day across a landscape, you need more high-energy foods. Okay. Do little tiny things take in energy in any way? What about plants? How do plants get energy? Sunlight. Is it what we think of as calories? No. Are they eating? I once had a student tell me that plants eat dirt. Not by any traditional definition. Do they take in energy from their environment? Yeah. Not the same way you and I do, but they certainly take in energy, and that's a common component of the definition of living things. Bacteria take in energy, plants take in energy, you and I and fungus take in energy. Okay, who has reproduce? Good. Reproduction, common feature of all living things. If it's going to be called a living thing, it has to be able to reproduce itself, either with or without assistance. So, reproduction. This plant is reproducing all by itself. It doesn't need another plant to make these little, it's actually called adventitious offspring. It's asexual reproduction. Here, it needs two kinds of cells. This is sexual reproduction. It's producing, and I believe these are producing both eggs and sperm in the same flower. But every living thing that we know of can make copies of itself. That's why we don't call viruses living things. What's funny? Sperm?
No.
The word sperm?
No.
We could all say it like 10 times. I'm totally fine with that.
No, that wasn't it.
Okay, good. I mean, I don't care if you think sperm is funny. Frankly, it took me years of teaching biology before I could stand in front of a room full of, ooh, that's awful, a room full of students and say eggs and sperm, eggs and sperm, eggs and sperm, eggs and sperm. So, you can gesundheit. Reproduces every living thing, bacteria, trees, earthworms, mice. That is terrible. All of them, let's try that. Reproduce. Every single one of them. Who has anything about keeping themselves the right temperature? Did anybody mention that? I don't think anybody did. So let me ask you. Would you survive inside your oven?
No.
Okay, turned on, baking a cake.
No.
350, not a chance. Would you survive, I guess there's I don't really watch TV, but I guess there's a show called Naked and Afraid, and they drop people in the middle of places, literally naked and afraid. So if we take, Naked and Afraid, Antarctica, how long will you survive in Antarctica?
40 minutes.
Probably not that long.
20 minutes.
Probably not that. I doubt it. It's probably under 20.
20 seconds.
I don't know the answer, but I'm guessing order of magnitude is under 20 minutes. Why? What kills you? You can't, your body can't keep you warm enough. So, has anybody here ever been dehydrated? Okay, dehydrated. Anybody here ever been water intoxicated? You know what that is? It's the opposite. You drink too much water, and your body actually dilutes the electrolytes so much that your muscles don't function. It results in loss of coordination, and it can result in death if the big muscle in the center of your chest is no longer coordinated enough to do the job that it does. Yeah, that big muscle is pretty important. I don't think the people wandering around with gallon jugs of water are at risk, but so keep correct temp and water balance. Anybody here ever cook a hamburger? On the grill, in the pan, anywhere? Okay. Any risks associated with hamburger? Oh, salmonella, E. coli, all kinds of nice fecal bacteria. Ew! Because when they butcher, guess what happens sometimes? You get poop on the meat. It's just a consequence of butchering. Bodies have tubes in them that carry fecal material, which is partially digested food, on its way out as poop. That would be feces. And sometimes in the butchering process, that poop gets on the surface of the meat. It happens. I mean, I've butchered. I've had accidents with a knife. If anybody here hunts, if you nick the gut, you can get poop on the meat. That's not a good thing. But, if it's just on the surface, you can wash it off. You can cook that surface. What if you take the surface and grind it up and mix it all up? Oh. Well, that's a problem. That's why ground beef tends to be considered more dangerous from a bacterial perspective than like a steak. Eating a steak a little bit rare is not as dangerous as eating raw ground beef. There are people who like raw ground beef. Ooh. Little risky. Why do you cook? So do you have to cook the beef in any way, the hamburger? What are you supposed to do with it? Cook it until it's no pink, right? No pink. Why? So it kills the bacteria. Kills the bacteria. Kills the bacteria. Till it's dead. Huh. We'll keep that thought. Okay, so has cells, uses energy, reproduces, keep correct temperature and water balance. Anything else you want to add? Anything else that you've got on your list that I missed? We didn't. We didn't. Does DNA fit neatly in any of these categories here? No?
Maybe cells.
Well, DNA is kept in cells. That is true. Where'd you get your DNA?
Reproduces.
Reproduces. Here's something that's, I think, if you really allow this to sink in, I find this to be one of the most mind-blowing. I just find biology amazing. So, I mean, biology is just descriptive. We're just describing what we see on this planet. We're describing living things and their systems and how they work and how they interact and stuff. Every living thing that we have ever found, because remember, we've only encountered living things from this planet. There may be living things on other planets. There's a very strong possibility that there are bacterial populations on one of the moons of Saturn, which would be living things, but we've not met them. We haven't seen them. We haven't observed them. Every living thing we've ever encountered, identified, studied, uses the same chemical to transmit information to its offspring. Which on the surface doesn't sound all that. Okay, so you and a blue whale and an earthworm and a daffodil and the oak tree out there and a wolf running across, the forests of northern Siberia and a water buffalo somewhere and a bacteria in one of those puddle pit pool things in the streets of Calcutta and that plant are all using the exact same chemical to transmit genetic information? It's the same chemical. DNA is the same chemical. From you to a mouse to a blue whale to a bacteria to an earthworm. All of you. I find that rather amazing. It is. It's 100% true. And it's a little weird. Like all of these living things on the planet, we're all kind of speaking the same chemical language. I can't drop you on your head in the middle of, outer Kazakhstan and expect you to speak the language. I can't drop you on the middle of your head in deepest Peru and expect you to speak the language. But chemically, you're speaking the same language as every other living thing. I find that astonishing. Okay, tomorrow, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go from the definition that we've discussed today of living things. We're going to talk a little bit about, don't put that away in your folders just yet unless you wouldn't like to get any points for it. We're going to talk a little bit about how bacteria fit into that category of living things and therefore what they need to do to make life okay for themselves and how that leads to antibiotic resistance. So, the paper that you completed in class today, please turn in. You will get some points for that. In the box! Isaac! You're killing me. We missed you. I'm glad to see you. Okay, so I like the hair, by the way. We did an in-class activity.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I'm still recording. Okay, so tomorrow we're doing what? We're talking more about living things, how bacteria fit that category, and having a quiz. Have a good day, folks. Happy travels.